Karen. The law of giving and receiving, right? Whatever we want to receive, we give more of. Whatever we give more of, we receive more of. Beautiful. Thank you, Karen. So welcome, everybody. We are in our second week of our Lenten series called Holy Vessels, and just a little reminder about where this idea comes from. So in the Jewish tradition, there is an idea of the third creation story in which God placed a divine light within vessels of not God, which could not hold that divine light, and so they shattered into all of these pieces. And it is our job to gather up this light by doing good services for one another, by being kind to one another, by being compassionate to one another, by giving, right? And that as we do so, we gather up these vessels of light, and that is symbolized here in our big container of beach glass and light there. So I'm so glad that you're here with me again today. These are all weeks that we are talking about healing. So last week we talked about healing of our physical body, and I invited you to think about ways that you could support physical healing for yourself. And thank you, Marilyn Velkerding, because she sent me a little text today about how she spiritually practiced that this week. So Marilyn decided after a sabbatical to begin taking her vitamins again, to call and find out about a gym membership, to do some exercises on her own at home, and looking into the steps to get her COVID vaccine. She also this week enjoyed meditation, honest self-appraisal, and spiritual studies. And so in that way, Marilyn was sharing with me how she has supported her physical health. So I'm trusting that you did the same, and this week we're moving on to community health. And as I said last week, I'm going to be sharing Jesus' healing miracles from the Gospel of Matthew. And so that is what this one is. Remember, this is coming in the 8th chapter of Matthew. And as I told you last week, right before this, Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount. So he was there in that high level of consciousness and came down from that mount. The crowds surrounded him. And there was healing that took place. So this is the second healing story that took place there. When he entered Capernaum, a centurion came to him, appealing to him and saying, "Lord, my servant is lying at home paralyzed in terrible distress." And he said to him, "I will come and cure him." The centurion answered, "Lord, I am not worthy to have you come under my roof, but only speak the word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. And I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and the slave does it." When Jesus heard him, he was amazed and said to those who followed him, "Truly I tell you, in no one in Israel have I found such faith. I tell you, many will come from the east and the west, and will eat with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven, while the heirs of the kingdom will be thrown into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." And to the centurion, Jesus said, "Go, let it be done for you according to your faith." And the servant was healed in that hour. And again, that's from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 8, verses 5 through 13. So there's a lot there, a lot in that little story. From looking at it from a historical perspective, from the context of that day, to a metaphysical look at how that particular story can support us in healing, and especially healing within community. So I want to remind you that in Jesus' time, the Israelites, the Jews of Jesus' time, were the oppressed people, and they were being oppressed by the Romans. And the Roman centurion was the one coming to Jesus to ask for healing for his servant. I want to invite you for a minute to think about that, right? So here is the oppressor asking the oppressed for help. And what Jesus could have done is said, "No. I mean, you're the Roman, you're the enemy. Why would I help you? Give all of that up and then come back, and then maybe I will help you." Right? But Jesus didn't say that. The centurion as well. I mean, he was a Roman soldier, a leader in the Roman army, because underneath of him he had 100 men. Men that did what he told them to do. And he was the oppressor, now going to the oppressed to say, help me. Imagine that, right? This soldier going to this Jewish teacher, asking for help, and what that must have taken for him to reach out and say, help me. And so we see within this story this openness from both the centurion and Jesus. They had to move out of their mindset of what they thought the other was in order to meet here in this moment in faith. Both the centurion and Jesus demonstrated a humility. They both demonstrated a willingness to see beyond their own societal bounds. They both had open hearts, and they met one another in that place. From a metaphysical perspective, the centurion, we're told in the revealing word, represents a will that is outside of the alignment with divine will. But this centurion comes with his will to Jesus, as we are each invited to do with our own will, to move outside of our own will and come and lay our will upon the heart of Christ, if you will, and say, help. There's healing that's needed. And the Christ meets us there. Jesus met that Roman centurion there and didn't say, well, you have to do this before I heal you, or you have to do that right before I heal you, but met there in that place and said, your faith is so strong. Your servant is healed, right? So we could look at our servant as those ideas that are in our consciousness, those ideas that might be out of alignment with divine will, coming to the Christ, laying those ideas there before the Christ, saying, heal. And the Christ raises up those ideas to a level of consciousness where healing is revealed. Now, he also talked about people coming from the east and the west and sitting with the prophets, right? And then the gnashing of the teeth out on the outer edges. And as I thought about that, I thought about how in our own world today, there are those that we have left out of the norms of society, if you will. And sometimes it is our very religions that have left them out there in those places. Sometimes we use our religions to justify why we leave people out, why we exclude some from within our circle. And I believe in that particular verse, Jesus is saying, if you do that, you will be left out of that kingdom of God, which is the kingdom of wholeness, of oneness, where we are all invited, where we are all included. So I've thought about all of these things this week, paying attention to what we are experiencing in this world. Because if there's one thing I know, Unity Spiritual Center invites us to practical Christianity, positive, practical Christianity. So whatever we're learning, we need to be able to apply it in our lives today. There was we have a USC Westlake community group, part of our Facebook pages, that you can join. And one of our members there, Elizabeth Figueroa, commented last night about a really challenging time that she's going through, that she's been going through. But she said she realized how she's going through it so much differently after coming to Unity. And she put it this way, I just loved it. She said, Unity is not a place we go to. Unity is something we carry with us. You see, so it's not a place that we go to. It's something that we carry with us. It's something that we apply to our lives. It's something that we can apply to every single aspect of our life so that we can integrate these spiritual teachings into our entire life. And this week, remember, is about community. So how can I support the healing of community? I'm going to take us through our 5 principles to show how those 5 principles can support us in the healing of community. And the first, of course, is knowing that God is the only power and the only presence in our life and in the universe, and that God is good and intends for us, all of us, to experience our good. We say that. We hold that knowing here in our mind. But how many times do we allow a bigger idea to interfere, to push out that power and presence that is God, and then we enter into that place of fear, of worry, of doubt, of concern, of blame, of othering, of exclusion? Remember, God includes it all. God, as Eric Butterworth said, is the circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. So we are invited into the living of that place where we include it all. Because the moment we exclude, we've created a place of not God. God is inclusive. So Jesus demonstrated that, didn't he? He didn't exclude that centurion. He invited that centurion into that circle of inclusivity. We too are invited to widen and expand our circle of inclusivity. And through the second principle, we remember that we can do that because that Christ light, that power and presence of God is there within all creation, within you, within me, within everyone. Unity recognized that we are each unique and individualized expressions of the divine. Therefore, each and every one has that potential to be that Christ expressing, and our job is to support each one in knowing that. To lift each one up to that place of loving acceptance, which are two of the values that Unity Spiritual Center holds. And so we're invited to ask, how do we do that in this world today? How do we support each one? Not only in the community of our families, the community of our spiritual centers, but the community of our country. I listened to a video this week from Braver Angels. Some of you know that I've been following Braver Angels. They're initiating conversations to heal the polarity that's so grown within our country. And so they had one this week about curiosity. This idea that curiosity can help us to heal our country. Because we've become so polarized because we have in our mind that we know about the other. And in that knowing, we exclude the other from our circle. But with curiosity, we can come back to, remember, revolutionary love, that place of wonder, of open-heartedness, of understanding. And this podcast was about how curiosity can help us to do that. This week, I've been paying attention to the voice of othering that has been taking place within our society and asking, how can curiosity help us to heal those ideas? Some of you may know that there was a Senate confirmation hearing this week. Now, this is not about politics, so please don't think this is about politics. And within that Senate confirmation hearing, Rachel Levine, who has been nominated as the Secretary of Health, was being questioned. And you may know, you may not know, that Rachel Levine is a transgender woman. And so there was a lot of conversation that I noticed out on my social media posting about being transgender, about excluding that. We all know, science has said there's male and there's female. The Bible says the same. And how much we've excluded people because of those ideas. But back in January, when we were looking at beauty, remember when we were contemplating beauty, one of those weeks was about seeing with eyes of wonder. And during that week, I came upon this really beautiful series of tweets that I wanted to share with you about this. If we come to this experience with curiosity and wonder, open to understanding, what could we discover? Here's what I found. This was by Rebecca Helm, by the way. If you know a bit about biology, you will probably say that biological sex is caused by chromosomes, XX and you're female, XY and you're male. This is chromosomal sex, but is it biological sex? Well, it turns out there is only one gene on the Y chromosome that really matters to sex. It's called the SRY gene. During human embryonic development, the SRY protein turns on male-associated genes. Having an SRY gene makes you genetically male. But is this biological sex? Sometimes that SRY gene pops off the Y chromosome and over to an X chromosome. Surprise! Now you've got an X with an SRY and a Y without an SRY. Why? What does that mean? A Y with no SRY means physically you're female, chromosomally you're male, and genetically you're female. An X with an SRY means physically you're a male, chromosomally you're female, and genetically you're male. But biological sex is simple. There must be another answer. Sex-related genes ultimately turn on hormones in specific areas in the body and reception of those hormones by cells throughout the body. Is this the root of biological sex? Hormonal male means you produce normal levels of male-associated hormones. Except some percentage of females will have higher level of male hormones than some percentage of males. Ditto female hormones. And if you're developing, your body may not produce enough hormones for your genetic sex, leading you to be genetically male or female, chromosomally male or female, hormonally non-binary, and physically non-binary. Well, except cells. They have something to say about this. Maybe cells are the answer to biological sex, right? Cells have receptors that hear the signals from sex hormones. But sometimes those receptors don't work. Like a mobile phone that's on Do Not Disturb. Call and they will not answer. So what does this all mean? It means you may genetically be male or female, chromosomally male or female, hormonally male, female, non-binary, with cells that may or may not hear the male, female, non-binary call. And all this leading to a body that can be male, non-binary, or female. Try out some combinations for yourself. Notice how confusing it gets. Can you point to what the absolute cause of biological sex is? Is it fair to judge people by it? Of course, you could try appealing to the numbers. Most people are either male or female, you'll say, except that as a biology professor, I will tell you the reason I don't have my students look at their own chromosomes in class is because people could learn that their chromosomal sex doesn't match their physical sex. And learning that in the middle of a 10-point assignment is just not the time. Biological sex is complicated. Before you discriminate against someone on the basis of biological sex and identity, ask yourself, have you seen your chromosomes? Do you know the genes of the people you love? The hormones of the people you work with? The state of their cells? Since the answer will obviously be no, be kind. Respect people's right to tell you who they are, and remember that you don't have all the answers. Again, biology is complicated. Kindness and respect don't have to be. Now, what I love about that is it invites us beyond the ideas that we hold, that you are that, and I am this, and we shall not meet in our understanding, to a greater understanding that I don't know, and you don't know, and we can be okay with the mystery of that. So that we don't other one another and exclude one another within our families, within our spiritual communities, within our greater communities, within our country, because we don't understand the way another is expressing. Curiosity invites us to a place of understanding. I may not agree with you, but I can understand you. And in that place of understanding, we can then meet in a place of common ground. And meeting in that place of common ground, then together we can find our way forward from that commonality. What's the commonality? I want to be accepted for who I am. You want to be accepted for who you are. What do I need to heal within myself so that I can accept you for who you are? What do I need to heal within myself to accept me for who I am? And as each of us works on that, we create healthy, diverse, thriving communities. This is what I'm inviting us to think about today. Curiosity is such a powerful thing. There have been studies done. That was a few pages there. Studies done, and from Britannica's Curiosity Compass, it says that when you engage in curiosity, now this is really important, the very first reaction that they notice in your brain is a state of discomfort. A state of discomfort. When I'm willing to be curious, it's quite likely that I'm going to be uncomfortable. Some of you might have been uncomfortable as I was reading these ideas about our sex. When we stretch and grow into what we don't know, into new understandings, we're likely going to feel uncomfortable. We can make peace with that. To create a healing community, a healing world, we need to make peace with that. But here's the beauty. When we stick with the curiosity, when we begin to learn other ideas, when we begin to open up to the idea that, oh yeah, sex is so complicated, I can't tell you who you are, then our brain rewards us for being curious. Because what research has determined, according to Britannica's Curiosity Compass, is that dopamine is released. Dopamine is the reward chemical of our body. It makes us feel good. When we move beyond our blinders of I know, when we move beyond our ideas, when we empty ourselves and stay open to wonder and curiosity, we allow ourselves to meet one another. As Jesus did with this centurion, humbly, heart open, willing. I will come, Jesus said. I will come and meet you where you are. I will come and meet you where you are. And with curiosity, we feel a sense of hope and peace and connection. And isn't that what we all want? Healthy community invites us to expand our circle of inclusivity wider and wider so that in unity we can meet and know that that divine Christ light that is within you is showing up uniquely and individually as you. And I see you for that. Now, that may be challenging for some people. I mean, let's face it, we all have our people. As I shared that, you might not have had an issue with this particular situation that this country is looking at right now, but there's likely something else that pushes your buttons. Some other that you want to leave outside of that circle of possibility. And how do we then move into that place? You know, our third principle tells us that we meet that divine Christ presence through prayer, through meditation. We've been studying these contemplative practices. We spent weeks talking about beauty with the idea that through contemplative practices we could find the beauty. Through prayer and meditation, we can return back to that Christ spirit within and find the beauty. One of the great teachers of contemplative practices today, Father Richard Rohr, tells us that contemplative practice invites us to step into the mystery, step into the unknown. We come with beginner's mind, letting go of the idea of I know, and open to, curious, wonder what you are, willing to understand. So prayer and meditation is a perfect tool to use. And then to remember that we can change our mind, that our initial response may be one of bias, but that we have the power of will helps us to choose, and we can change our mind and make another choice and say, here's this bias, but I choose to see you with wonder and with openness. And we just keep practicing. Because I think for me, it's a lifetime of practice. But I'm willing to do the work. I'm willing to be a part of the healing of our collective consciousness, of the consciousness of this community, of the consciousness of our Westlake community, of the consciousness of our country. To heal, to accept, to love, to uplift, to support, to encourage, to understand. And so it does take some practice. And so I want to share with you what our practice is today. Hopefully I can find it here. Here we go. So in the words of Jesus this week, we heard his healing words of, I will come. When faced with a request, Jesus makes a move to seek out, to come, to help the one who is previously seen to be outside of help's embrace. He moves outward to gather in and heal someone unlikely to have crossed his path otherwise. All are within God's circle of safekeeping. So consider the people in your community, in your spiritual community, in your greater community, in your country's community. Consider the people, your family, your coworkers, your friends who are suffering. Perhaps from lack of support, perhaps from lack of understanding. And how can you say, I will come? What support can you offer to bring that sense of healing to your community? How can you help them to feel safe? Because sacred community allows each one to feel safe to be who they are. How can you help them to feel connected? And take action this week. It doesn't matter how small. Take action this week to support someone who is suffering, who is hurting in your community. And as what was mentioned last week, if you take your stone today and place it within your Zen garden, if you've gotten one of our Zen gardens, that's our contemplative practice. To place your stone there so that each week you can come with a beginner's mind, emptying yourself of I know, contemplating these ideas, recommitting once more to yes, how can I include more and more? How can I expand my circle of inclusivity and heal and love? I want to thank those of you who sent me pictures this week. We are taking pictures of these Zen gardens. You can create whatever you'd like within them. Send me a picture. And then this week there is a form up on our website. If you go to our live stream page or our Sunday service page, you'll see a button that will take you to that form. If you have a healing story, if you have a story of how these ideas and principles have helped you to heal any aspect of your life and you want to share that with the community, I want you to fill out that form, because together we are going to create a living cross of resurrection with these stories. And that will come on Easter. And so I'm looking for your support and your help to let me know that you have a story you'd like to share. For those of you who have not yet picked up our Lenten bags or our Zen gardens, we still have a few of them left outside of Unity Hall. So stop by this week and pick them up. Thank you, friends.